Okay, so I'm just going to throw together a kind of simple program here. Apologies for the suddenly white screen, but I've had to switch computers. I'm just going to stretch this out a bit so we can see what we're doing. And what I want to do is write a basic program that takes some input, does something with it, and gives some output. So for that, really, two text boxes like this, and let's have a button as well. So drop that down there, and we'll just change the label to make that mean something to the user. So yeah, very minimal interface. Now, it's almost always that you're using Visual Studio to do something event driven. So if you're trying to get to the code, you do it via event into the code. So if I double click, say, on the form background, it will take me into the event for the form loading. If I double click one of these text boxes, it will take me to the event for text being changed in the text box. In this case, I want to do something with the submit button when that's clicked. So if I double click on that, it will take me through to the code, and it will place my cursor nicely where I can code for that button's event. So if we just look back through the structure of the program, first of all, you've got a load of library loads. So these are all collections of functions that we can use. So for instance, system drawing has a load of functions to do with drawing on the window. Windows Forms has a load of libraries, a load of functions that are used with Windows Forms. We'll talk more about those if you're doing procedural programming later on. We then have the namespace, so the start of the program, and we then have this class for Form 1, which is our Windows form. Inside that, we've got the initialization of the actual form itself, so the loading, and a lot of that's handled elsewhere. There's a lot of code running behind you that you can't see, so just that initialized component is sufficient. And then we have this, which is the event handler for that button being clicked. So there's a few bits in this that we should understand. One is this term private void. Private is a privacy level, privacy setting, so public and private. Public functions and public variables are available throughout the program. Private are locked down to just that one area. In this case, it's a void. A void means a function that will not give a return. So some functions will be expected to spit a number back into the program, or a value, or a true or false. This doesn't give any kind of return. So we don't need a return true or return false on it. Then we've got this, which is just saying when that button is clicked, so when button 1 is clicked. And then object sender is the object that sent the event, and event args e is information about the event. We won't be using those during this course, but they are very powerful later on when you come to do your own program. So let's get some code into this private void, this button click event. And I'm going to want to do two things. I'm going to want to take some data that has been entered by a user. So I want to get some stuff from that text box 1. To do that, I need to declare a variable to store that in. Now there's a few different data types I can use. In this case, I'm going to use a string, and there will be a video on data types that you can go look at to get information. And then I need to give it a name. So let's call it number in for now. It's not actually going to be a number, first of all. And then I do an equal sign, and that equal sign is an assignment. So I'm now expected to give that a value. And the value I'm going to give it is textbox 1 dot text semicolon. Now in C, you do have to be careful about capitalization. It is a strictly typed language, so it will expect to see the capital if it is a capital in that command, and in text it is. You can see text box is camel cased, so make sure that you use the capital B. If I put text box with a small b, it will spit up an error down here saying that that name does not exist, because text box is one thing and text box with a capital B is actually the thing that's on the form. So I've now taken that text from text box 1 and I've stored it in a string, and now let's just get it to spit it back out. So let's do text box 2 dot text equals number in. Easy enough. So what I'd expect to happen now is when I click on the submit button, because remember all this is contained within the submit button, it will take whatever text is in text box 1, store it as number in, and then put it into text box 2, making text box 2's text property equal to that variable number in. So let's just run that and make sure it works. Oh, build errors. Oh, because I've typed something with my big fat fingers while trying to press F5. There we go. So if I type hello here and then submit, you can see it spits out hello in the second text box. So that's easy enough. I can take text in, I can put text out. The problem comes with when you want to do something with numbers using text boxes, because text boxes always contain strings as far as the program is concerned. If I put int here, which is then expecting an integer for that number in value, you will see it kicks up a load of errors. So it says I cannot implicitly convert type string to type int. Basically, you're putting a string into the text box and then trying to store it in an int variable, and it doesn't like it. So we have to convert that to an int. And to do that, we can use the command convert and then .2 and then int 32, and then putting our textbox2.text part in brackets, and hopefully that error has now disappeared. We've got another error now that it can't convert that integer to a string, but we're going to ignore that one for the minute, and we're going to do something with number in. Okay, so I'm going to change the value of number in and multiply it by 10. So if we do number in equals number in times 10. So that line should take the value of number in, multiply it by 10, and then store it as number in. The great advantage of using variables, we can change them whenever we want. So number in will go from, say we typed in 6, it should change to 60 before we start putting out our value. So again, we've got an error here because I'm now storing this, so this number in value is now an integer, and I'm telling it to put it in a text box, but text boxes only take strings. So we're going to convert that back to a string. So let's do convert dot to string brackets number in. And that should then take the integer value, convert it to a string so it can be displayed in that text box. So let's just test that out. So let's put in 10, hit submit, and I get 100, which is what I should expect. Let's test it with some other numbers. 15. Cool. Check it with some negative numbers just to make sure. Yeah. So it's multiplying that number by 10, which is a really simple thing to do and not something you particularly want a program to do. But hopefully it's shown a couple of ways of doing conversions and how to get numbers out of text boxes and put numbers into text boxes, which is something everybody who's doing these courses is going to want to be able to do. So let's leave that there for the moment, and we'll come back and look at some more, slightly more complicated programming in a minute.